The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, dedicated to creating access to financial well-being for local people, businesses, and communities. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, we'll celebrate the birthday of a cult classic at the Triplex Cinemas in Great Barrington with two of the stars from Psycho Beach Party, Chris Busch and Lauren Ambrose.
And we'll see what really makes us human in Amherst as we talk with the team bringing the new opera, The Onion, to the stage this weekend.
But first, we continue our conversations with the four folks vying for the position of mayor in Northampton.
With our second candidate, Northampton native David Dombrowski.
This coming Tuesday is a preliminary election for mayor in the city of Northampton, and we are joined by one of the folks running, candidate David Dombrowski. Candidate Dombrowski, a native of Northampton who's running for mayor. According to his campaign website, he is a graduate of a trade school, Smith Vocational, I believe, a former Northampton police officer who served 20 years and retired honorably.
Dombrowski re-entered the private sector experiencing ups and downs of the economy. Working in both the blue and white collar worlds, he has owned businesses in the banking and insurance industries and has owned commercial real estate.
Dombrowski is a father, a sports coach, a Shriner, and he's running for mayor of Northampton in the preliminary election this coming Tuesday, September 16th. We asked all the candidates to come on the show this week, and we told them they could choose where they wanted to do the interview. The mayor, the current mayor, wanted to check out the NEPM studios, so we did that one there. Candidate David Dombrowski wanted to do the lobby of the Hotel Northampton, which is where we are right now, this beautiful historic Hotel of America. Why is this where you wanted to do it, candidate?
Hotel of America.
No, Historic Hotels of America is like a thing.
It's a thing.
You know, people want to go camping at all the national parks?
Yeah.
No, I want to go to all the historic hotels of America.
They're all haunted.
But why is this where you wanted to do it, Dave?
It's a nice place. It's downtown. Mm-hmm. It's convenient for everybody, I thought.
You have a dramatic story from your childhood where you were shot. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, a bunch of my friends, the little kids in the neighborhood, we were in our teens. I was 13, and I went out to the woods. One guy brought a rifle. We were looking around for squirrels. We all started to horse around, and the guy with the rifle hit his butt against a rotted tree stump. I was looking up along with everybody else, and I didn't know he was going to do that, and otherwise I wouldn't have stood in front of the rifle. And anyway, it discharged when he struck the rotted branch, and it shot me right here in the chest. Went through my heart, pumped through my veins. They thought it was going to go up, but it went down, thankfully, and they pulled it out in the left side of my leg, anterior femoral artery.
But that sort of set you off on a course for the rest of your life. You have made it part of your campaign, this story. So can you tell us how this fits into the narrative of Dave Dombrowski as mayoral candidate?
Yeah, life is precious, and I think you should just make the best of every minute you have here to improve things, to do the best you can in whatever you're doing.
And yet, gun control, not a tenet of your campaign. You're kind of opposed to that.
Yeah, I'm definitely opposed to that. I mean, it's your right to bear arms, so I strongly agree with that.
We are joined in the lobby of the Hotel Northampton by the NEPM News Department's own Nirvani Williams. Do you got a question for the candidate, Nirvani?
I do have a question. It's nice to be here with you. I'm just wondering generally why you're running for mayor and what about the current administration dissatisfies you right now?
Well, I'm running for mayor because I'm just tired of the expensive cost of living. I know it's sort of spread out everywhere, but from 2017, when I was in Northampton, the taxes were pretty steady from 2017 and prior to that. But after 2017, things started to rise. Why? Nobody seems to have an answer for that. And that's one of the reasons, because I want to reduce taxes. And quite honestly, just last night, I think I stumbled upon several reasons why the taxes are increasing, not only in Northampton, but pretty much everywhere across the country and beyond.
What was that discovery?
From the information I was able to read just last night, so it's just an overview, I think that the city is, I don't know to what extent exactly or even in what details, I haven't had a chance to research it that far, but I think the reason the taxes are so high because they're paying off some sort of debt. Not only Northampton, but other cities as well. My guess is that it has something to do with bonds, and cities aren't able to pay off bonds, and it's related to the school departments really, I don't have a lot of information. I jotted a few notes down, but I'm still looking into that part of it.
Could it be the rising value of homes in Northampton that's causing the taxes to go up?
That's interesting you say that, because that has a lot to do that. How do they base what the value of property is? The 16th Amendment says we're not supposed to be taxed for unrealized gains. So your paycheck, my paycheck, everybody's paycheck is taxed because we're gaining, we're making money. But your real estate, that's not making money. So how can they tax it? The 16th Amendment says you're not to be taxed. And it goes beyond that. It has to do, I think, with the development of schools, the bonds, the interest coming due. They're basically stealing from mom and pops, the taxpayers in real estate, because they're overinflating that. So what does that do? It strains every household. So you take everybody's income from every household and the tax keeps going up and up and up. There's only so much any family can absorb, and everyone's a little bit different, but apparently the numbers are showing that they're at that plateau now and they don't know what to do. So instead of raising the tax rate, they're going to, I feel, it may be a guess, but they're going to raise the mill rate.
Forgive me, I don't know what the mill rate is.
Yeah, it's a rate where it's tied to the schools. I don't know exactly all the details on that, but the mill rate is tied to the schools, somehow tied to the bonds to produce income to pay for the bonds that are funding the schools. If you have a $300,000 house and it raises 0.5%, that's $9,000 in taxes instead of $7,500. The reason they're thinking about raising the mill rate is because the taxes, they pushed the mom and pops, all the families, the renters, to a point where they can't take it anymore financially. By raising the mill rate, they're going to probably say, we're not going to raise the taxes. I'm not speaking just for Northampton, but throughout the U.S. Why? Why is this being done all of a sudden, everywhere? I think there's something funny going on, and I think the people are paying for whatever this fraud or scam, I don't know what it is.
And that's why you've made making a massive audit kind of one of the tenets of your
Right,
campaign.
yeah.
And we're here at the Hotel Northampton with candidate David Dombrowski. There's a preliminary election in Northampton this coming Tuesday.
How does your plan for a mixed-use development differ from Picture Main Street?
Picture Main Street is...
Which is the downtown redevelopment. It's going to go to one lane. It's going to expand the sidewalks. It's going to make it a shorter cross from one side to the other. Controversial plan in town.
Right, and the issue with that, I'm not against that. I am against that, I should say. And the reason I'm against it, because it's a cookie cutter plan, and it doesn't customize to each and every city that chooses to do that. It might do something, but what? Nobody seems to know. Where are the studies? Where's the traffic count? All this. There's so many versions going on, nobody really knows what the issue is. I saw one blueprint online quite a while ago, and I went to the meeting at the First Church there, and the people from Pittsfield, they didn't have answers. They didn't even inquire to the DOT for the people that plan that. It's basically a cookie cutter plan. They just have certain standards. They plop it down in Northampton, or whatever town, whether it works or not. And it needs to be customized to make the city downtown valuable, bring people downtown to keep the shops alive. That includes residential use, apartments or condos, office space, and on the first level it should be all retail. And why should it be all retail? Because it's going to bring people downtown. And that's the whole plan, to keep Northampton alive. If you don't start bringing people downtown, it's already dying because the economy is so bad. And part of that, my wonder about where the money's going here in the city, our tax money, is they can't even build buildings because the default rate is roughly 70% for residential units. So if somebody builds a building and they have people come in, they're taking such a chance that there's a 70% chance that that person's going to default or not paying their rent or whatever the case might be. The same goes for mom and pop businesses as well. Their risk of going under is 50 to 60%. And if there's a duplicate store that opens within the city, that default rate goes beyond 60%.
But do you have specifics about your downtown development plan as opposed to the other one?
Yeah, like how would you address it?
Well, I mean, I would want everybody to be in on it, so to speak, so clarity and transparency. And I would want ideas once my plan is drawn up, and my plan is more specific or, is more refined, I think, than the current plan. It's not a cookie cutter, it's more of a custom build for the city. And that would include, obviously, sidewalks, a dedicated lane for bikes with curbings and trees. You're gonna have to narrow the road, and I really wanna put trams in to bring city people, throughout the city. And it's easier to hop on a tram and come downtown, or if the Florence gets developed, which that's part of my plan as well, and eventually Leeds. So now you have 3 competing downtowns, which might stabilize prices if it's restaurants throughout those 3 downtown areas.
Part of the Picture Main Street thing is that the Department of Transportation is paying for a lot of it. Would they pay for a plan that you've suggested in the same way?
I hope so. My refinements might be a little bit different, but it's not something that's in their cookie cutter book. So maybe there might be an issue with that, but ultimately it's the people's money. It's our money. We should do what we choose to do with it.
In regards to trying to create economic stabilization, do you have an interest in rent control for businesses of downtown? Because it's not just housing where the rents are a little out of control.
Rent control for residents or apartments, no. For businesses, no. I mean, the whole idea is then you're just going to strangle the landlords, or beat them to death with regulation. The more regulation you cut out, it opens the free market up. And quite honestly, when everything's crumbling around Northampton or Western Mass or whatever the case might be, that's why you need to have a sustainable city. And that means keep mom and pops here, bring in agriculture, industry, retail, whatever we can do to bring it in. I know.
But if you don't regulate the rent for renters and don't regulate the rent for businesses, and let's say you are a business owner who owns a lot of properties and is strangleholding them by not allowing people in at a certain rate.
And you're worried about those renters defaulting on their rents.
Yeah, how do you solve a problem like
Maria.
or Eric Shore?
The problem is the 16th Amendment says there should be no taxes. That's the first issue. We're all paying taxes. Why? Because the bonds to the school.
So do you think that the schools should not be funded by the taxpayers, or how would they fund schools? Because schools is another major issue.
No. The first thing is, why is it in the Constitution? And then take it from there. This is already going before the Supreme Court down in Texas.
So are you saying that the way that Texas is thinking about doing things tax-wise should be used in Northampton? And if not, how would you fund the schools? Or should the schools be funded by the taxpayer in Northampton?
Well, I mean, it's just inflated budget, quite honestly.
But meanwhile, everybody's saying there's not enough going to the
Right,
schools. So.
I understand that, but there are also other rights of the residents and people in general. I guess we'll have to get to that bridge when we cross it.
You're a former police officer.
Yeah.
Do you think the police department is being funded appropriately? Because the police department is also a socialist organization in most communities, funded by the taxpayer.
Right. Again, I mean, there's no way I can answer that right now. I mean, that's something I'm, have to investigate further. And quite honestly, it's a choice of continuing to tax the taxpayers where they can't pay that tax any longer. Then they're going to up the mill rate. What's going to happen is everything's going to collapse. So, and that means the bonds aren't going to be paid. It's a potential collapse of the economy.
In Northampton or writ large?
Throughout the United States.
So you as candidate for mayor, if you were mayor, you're trying to brace the city of Northampton to stem the inevitable tide.
I'm asking, where's the money going?
We thought we'd read the 16th Amendment. It reads as follows. The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived, without apportionment among the several states and without regard to any census or enumeration.
More coming up with candidate for mayor David Dombrowski as we explore how national issues intersect with the streets of Northampton, the question of sanctuary cities, and more.
After which, we'll bring more arts into the picture with cult classic Psycho Beach Party at Triplex Cinemas and a brand new opera, The Onion, in Amherst.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
We're speaking with candidate Dave Dombrowski, who's running for mayor of Northampton in the preliminary election this coming Tuesday, and we are in the lobby of the Hotel Northampton, and we are also joined by NEPM News Department's own Nirvani Williams.
Hello. Yes, and just going back to your question, Monty, about you being a police officer, what experience do you have that'll help you as an elected official as a police officer?
You just keep, you have conversations with your city councilors, residents, of course. Invite any and all ideas. It's our city, so everybody should have a say.
There was a major debate in the wake of the murder of George Floyd in the city of Northampton about the level to which funding of police should be cut, and it was cut. And then the Department of Community Care was also created as an alternative way of dealing with certain issues that the police department had become responsible for over the course of time. The city of Northampton may not be the most police-friendly city. What makes you think that the people of Northampton want to elect a police officer as the mayor?
Well, as a police officer, and granted I'm retired, but still the standard is, our standard of accountability is higher than, say, anybody else walking on the street. We're supposed to have a higher standard of accountability, and believe Northampton is quite honestly one of the best police departments you'll ever have, and if you've moved around, maybe you're aware of that. So
what's your take on the Department of Community Care? Is this something that you are supportive of?
Yeah, I know it seems to be working within the city. The only reservation I really have is I don't know the protocol, so this answer, I don't have all the facts, but what I'm saying is that my only concern is that if the community care people responding to the incident, if it goes bad, it might be a mess, but I'm sure that they have stop gaps in there for that sort of thing.
One of your points on your ticket is to eliminate unnecessary regulations, I'm assuming within the city. Can you be more specific about what regulations you think are...
Those are the good people of the Northampton Fire Department.
Our tax dollars at work.
At least Nirvani's tax dollars.
Yeah.
Worth noting, Khalees and I do not live here.
I don't live here. I have no horse in this race. Yeah, what regulations for the city of Northampton that you can be specific about that you feel are excessive?
So I guess it'd be city ordinances, anything that hinders business, anything along those lines, or any other ordinance that slows the process down.
Can you name a couple, though? Because, let's say I want to create a factory that pours dangerous chemicals into the river. Should there be a regulation about that, or what specifically?
I can name one off the bat that I feel is excessive, although it's a state thing, and it's the liquor licenses.
What about you, candidate Dombrowski? Any specific regulations you can name that you'd like to get rid of to make business a little bit more smooth in the city of Northampton?
Yeah, all the regulations for business and building, and it may be industrial as well, that impede the speed and the ability to do that particular project in a timely, efficient, cost-effective manner.
NEPM's Nirvani Williams.
I appreciate a lot about what you're saying when you bring in the Constitution and you're talking about a lot of national things happening, but what is your specific plans for residents in Northampton when it comes to high prices for rent, for renters and tenants, and homeowners, and unhoused people as well? There's a lot happening in the city with high prices that you've been talking about, but I'd like to know your specific plan for the residents.
Sure. Okay, so if we all decided to build a apartment unit, whatever, 5 stories, I don't know how many units, you pick a number, how expensive is that going to be? So it's not expensive, then it goes back to the affordability. So it's a black hole. It'll never happen. The pay for people is not there, so they can't afford it. The only way they're going to be able to afford that specific apartment is if they have multiple roommates, bring in another family or family members to afford it. So it's a black hole. There's no way it can be done. It's just going to be outrageously expensive, and we're trying to cut costs here. The only way, if you were to do that, the only way I could see where you could cut approximately 33 to 60% of the cost, and granted, there are other costs in there, I don't know them all, but is to prefab that apartment complex, meaning make it off-site and crane it in and drop it in each section. That's the only way you're going to do it, make it a little bit affordable. That's if that bond thing having to do with the schools and the taxes don't collapse the economy first. I mean, where's the work here? Massachusetts isn't friendly towards business or a lot of other things either. They make it difficult. In fact, the guy on Shark Tank, Mr. Wonderful, Kevin Leary, I believe his name is, he wanted to do some sort of huge computer center here in Massachusetts, and he was from the Boston area. And he spoke with the local politicians or the state politicians, not in Northampton, but the state politicians that supposedly represent us. And he said that Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, all these states have so much regulation, you have to be out of your mind to even want to establish a business here in Massachusetts. So it's not that the business isn't out there, it's just Massachusetts is not business friendly, period.
We're in the lobby of the Hotel Northampton. We're this week speaking with all 4 candidates for mayor of Northampton. The preliminary election is this coming Tuesday. It's a preliminary election, ostensibly, because everybody is of the same party. You have said, and been very critical of Northampton as a sanctuary city. Do you identify with any of the major political parties? And what is your take on the current administration in Washington, D.C.?
Okay, so so you want my take on Washington, D.C. We'll go with that.
Well, first, do you identify as a Democrat or Republican?
No, I'm an independent candidate. I had been in the Democratic Party years ago, Republican Party years ago, and I just don't. Why are there parties? That's why it's just a divide and conquer, in my opinion. But
so let's take the next phase and sanctuary city. Your take on that?
So sanctuary city, I don't agree with it. My parents, well, my dad, his dad, and my dad's mother came from Europe. They entered this country legally. My now ex-wife is from Europe, and both of us went through the process to bring her to the United States legally. So why is it different for everybody else?
As an aside, how long did that process take for you?
The actual process?
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot to the process.
Yeah.
But in this particular case, I had to go to Europe a couple of times, which it was interesting, and then submit additional paperwork from the other side, the European side, and then you get approved or not, then you come to the United States.
But most people don't have the resources to do that. And especially with what's going now with the Trump administration, they're targeting specific groups of people and making sure that they don't come into the country. I mean, it has been important historically that cities allow more people in so that they could also add to the economy.
Sure. Even doing all the things right, there are sometimes time setbacks. And so if you're here and mid-process and you're in the middle of doing it right, you can still kind of be called on it.
Yeah, there have been times where people have been being picked up while they're going to the court appointment that they had scheduled, thinking they're doing the right thing the whole time.
Yeah, there needs to be, I feel like there has to be some sort of middle area while this is streamlined.
What's your take on that?
Yeah, I agree there should be or could be a middle line, but first of all, they're starting off on the wrong ground. They should start it wherever they are. If it takes time, so be it. What's the emergency?
Well, what if you're being pursued by a horrible gang and you are trying to get your family to freedom and your only option is to try to cross a border? Is there a middle ground for people like that? Refugees. Refugees have historically been somebody that the United States has been comfortable with accepting.
Sure, I get that. So, I mean, instead of the state of Massachusetts wasting millions of our taxpayer dollars on just, accepting the immigrants, and then, giving them a place to live, feed them, and it's costing the taxpayers millions of dollars. I don't think that's a good benefit for the people of Massachusetts and Northampton. So, okay, the criminal element, okay, so they definitely shouldn't be here if they're criminals. I mean, if they're illegals, they're not supposed to be here either. And the previous presidents also kicked people out of the country. So I lost my thought here.
Well, let's bring it back to the final thread of my three-part question. What's your take on the current administration and how they've been handling things? Lots of federal money has been cut off for programs that would benefit the city of Northampton, from everything from the school department to potential infrastructure. What's your take on the current administration as potential future mayor of the city of Northampton?
So you're talking about
You a MAGA guy?
you're talking about Northampton?
I'm talking about your perspective on the current administration and the job they're doing.
In Washington or here?
In Washington, as it would affect here.
So I would present a resolution to not make it a sanctuary city, therefore we'd get our funds. And there is a middle ground, like you say. I feel that, if there are people here and they're, working and making an attempt to be a citizen, I think that the state should provide funds or an avenue so the immigrants out of their pocket can start the process here. And why can't that be done?
What about things apart from just sanctuary city things? What about dismantling the Department of Education, things that would have an impact on students in Northampton?
Disassembling the Department of Education, they already did that.
Do you support that?
I really don't think I have enough information on it, but if it's just a entity that really doesn't help every student, I just don't see it as it being necessary. What might be more helpful would be, I don't know, you have to tell me again. I got a lot going on upstairs.
There's also SNAP benefits that are being cut, and a lot of food assistance programs being cut. What's your take on that?
Sure.
That's happening from the Trump administration down to.
Yeah. So I understand what you're saying about housing for people who really basically can't afford it. There's always going to be homeless people that just don't want to be in a home. At least I've run across that personally on the job as a cop. But you're never going to get anybody who's able to afford, whether it's an apartment here or buy a house. With the taxes the way they are, the elevated appraisals, which I don't believe are real, and the inflation that they add into those various appraisals. Once you lower the tax rate and you allow people to, and loosen the regulation, allow them to build at a lower rate.
But if that doesn't happen, how do you make people access food, like through SNAP, if that's all cut?
Retail, industrial, have a thriving city that wants to grow. And that includes, that tram to keep people coming to the downtowns. You gotta have business. I mean, if there's no business, what are they gonna do? I mean, they're just gonna eventually move on because they can't afford it. That's what they're gonna do, just like all the people who can't afford their taxes and water sewer bills, and they're gonna be foreclosed upon. Why? Because the taxes are so high, because there's not enough work here, the wages aren't adequate to sustain people, especially elderly, veterans, and even working families.
Candidate Dave Dombrowski is our second candidate for mayor of Northampton, meeting here at the Hotel Northampton, your place of choosing. Thanks for taking so much time with us, and good luck in the preliminary election on Tuesday.
Well, thank you for having me, and I hope I answered your questions.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
David, don't you hear?
You can hear more of our chat with candidate Dave Dombrowski if you listen to the Fabulous 413 podcast. 2 more candidates to go as we continue to speak with all 4 of the folks running on the preliminary ballot September 16th. And tomorrow we'll be joined by Dan Brindell.
And now the arts as we return to the politics light portion of our show, sort of.
Considering that all art is political.
Especially when we're talking about the intersections of memory and AI that happen within the new opera, The Onion.
It's also what makes the Campy Send-Up Psycho Beach Party so fun, so we'll hear more about the 25th anniversary showing happening at the Triplex in Great Barrington next.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
Hi, this is Lauren Ambrose calling.
Hey, Lauren. I've got Charles on the other line, and I'm going to do my best to merge these calls. Can everybody hear everybody? Does Charles hear Lauren and Lauren hear Charles?
Hi, Charles.
Hello, darling.
I'm so glad we're doing this.
Yeah, this is a good sign.
Yes, really fun.
You kids think you own this beach. Think it's a teenage world or you're dead wrong.
Have I been acting strange lately? Who do you have to get a hot dog in this dump? What? Por la mañana, mediodía. A surfer chick with a split personality. Should I unpack my bongos? I intend to unpack mine.
This Saturday, September 13th at 7 p.m. at the Triplex Cinema in Great Barrington, there is a special screening of the cult classic film Psycho Beach Party, directed by Robert Lee King, written by Charles Busch, and starring Lauren Ambrose, Nicholas Brendan, Amy Adams, Thomas Gibson, and Charles Busch.
Lauren Ambrose and screenwriter star Charles Busch will join Triplex board member Sam Handel for a discussion after the film. Charles Busch is an actor, screenwriter, playwright, and drag queen. In 2000, his play The Tale of the Allergist's Wife opened on Broadway to critical acclaim, receiving a Tony Award nomination for Best Play and ran for almost 800 performances. Busch got a lot of attention in film and television work, playing a prisoner named Nat Ginsburg for 2 seasons on HBO's Oz.
Lauren Ambrose starred as Claire Fisher in the critically acclaimed HBO drama 6 Feet Under, for which she won 2 Screen Actors Guild Awards and which, in my humble opinion, has the best ending of any television show of all time. Her film work includes About Sunny, a 2011 film she produced and starred in, and for which she was nominated for an Independent Spirit Award. In 2018, she played Eliza Doolittle in the Lincoln Center Theater revival of My Fair Lady, for which she was nominated for a Tony Award, a Grammy Award, as well as an Outer Critics Circle Award. And recently, she's been starring in the Showtime drama thriller series that I'm also a huge fan of, Yellow Jackets. And Lauren Ambrose and Charles Busch join us now. Thank you both so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Hi, guys.
Yeah.
This was a fun rewatch.
Yes.
I rewatched it over the week, and I was like, oh, yeah, I love this movie.
This movie, which you started out writing, I think, as a play, Charles, it's like a hybrid of all of the Annette Funicello beach party movies with the campiness of a John Waters movie.
High camp.
And a little bit of a touch of David Lynchiness in there, too, I got from the rewatch of this.
Yes, actually, the dark underbelly of this, that sunny beach party movie. I mean, it never really gets dark. It's a spoof, but it's like it has some of the elements of a 70s slasher movie.
And Lauren, you get to kind of play, I don't want to ruin too much of this movie without...
I mean, the description of the movie says a lot of what happens.
But sometimes that ruins it for us. But you get to play kind of like playing multiple roles, Lauren, and you get to chew the scenery up. And so does everybody in the movie, which I also think is it looks like the most fun movie to make. Tell me about what you remember about making this movie that came out back in 2000.
Yes. Well, and I don't think we have to worry too much about spoiling the film because we are celebrating the film's 25th anniversary, and that's the reason for the screening, and it was just received into the Criterion collection.
Nice.
And yes, it was, oh my goodness, it was incredible. I was a kid, and it was one of my very first jobs. I don't know, it's just been such an honor for me, really, for my whole career to have played this role that Charles originated and wrote, and I'm just such a fan of his and of his work. It was also just an incredible part to have this one character who has so many different personalities within her, and it was an opportunity to be really funny and kind of go for it. And also, it was very theatrical, and especially because of the way we shot it. It was an indie that we shot in, gosh, Charles, do you remember how many days? It wasn't very many.
21 days?
Whoa.
21 days.
Yeah.
And
Crazy.
so there were a lot of
Crazy.
times where, the sun was setting and we had to just get it all in one. And here I'm doing multiple personalities, and it was like, oh boy, what are we doing? I don't know about this, but it was incredible.
Almost no rehearsal in that kind of indie film, and we just had to hope that this kid could do it.
You did it, Lauren. You
Unfortunately,
did
I
it.
did what I could. I did my best.
And I could be of no help to her because, I had played the part in the theater, on stage. But the director, Bob King, I think he was afraid that somehow, I was just going to take over and be giving notes to the actors. I have good manners. I know you don't do that. So anyway, you got me so scared. I think at one point, Lauren had this very difficult scene to play, and she came over to me and asked me if I could give her some tips. And I was so afraid that I locked myself in the dressing room, put a chair against the door because I didn't want the director to yell at me.
I feel like on set, I feel like I was stalking you because I didn't know that he'd given you that directive.
Oh, terrible.
And I thought, for me, I mean, really my whole life, everything I've done, I always do so much research. So I go to the source and I watch everything I can. And so I'm like, oh man, I've got the font here. I'm going to pick his brain. And yeah, you would run away from it. I didn't understand.
Oh. Actually, has a communicable disease.
Give me a complex, Charles.
And we are speaking with the font himself, Charles Busch, who is the writer of Psycho Beach Party, as well as one of the stars of Psycho Beach Party and the star of Psycho Beach Party, Lauren Ambrose, who will be in conversation this Saturday evening with Lauren's husband, hosting the conversation at the Triplex Cinema in Great Barrington, her husband, who is a screenwriter and board member of the theater there, Sam Handel.
It takes all types. Charles, how hard was it to adapt the stage play to a screenplay?
Yeah, so it was very difficult. I'd never done this before. I don't know if I'd ever written a screenplay before. And, it was very lighthearted stage play. It ran about a year off Broadway, and but there really was no plot as such. And I had a wonderful manager, Jeff Melnick, who just really thought it could be a movie. Actually, he took on as a client this young director, Bob King. And so it all worked out together that we were going to make a movie of Psycho Beach Party. And fortunately, Bob is a talented screenwriter. Although I got sole credit, he really was an enormous help. And he had a real liking for these slasher movies, in the 70s, and thought that if we overlaid that onto the Beach Party movie, that it would help us get a real linear plot. And then that allowed me to be in the movie as well, because I had played Chicklet. It was, a very stylized, campy play, and all of us knew that we just didn't want the movie to be so stylized to have this, middle-aged guy playing the teenage girl. So when it had aspects of a real thriller, then I thought, oh, well, if there's actually a killer on the loose, there has to be a detective. I could play the more mature role of this rather glamorous lady detective.
And that was the part that most reminded me of David Lynch, because of the David Duchovny character as an investigator in Twin Peaks. So I was like, this is an homage to so many things that I love at the same time, and including film, because, it begins and ends at a drive-in movie theater. And I'm imagining that wasn't part of the original stage play, but it becomes such a huge part of what makes this movie great. And we are speaking about the movie Psycho Beach Party with the writer Charles Busch, who's also a star of the movie, and 413 resident Lauren Ambrose, who will both be in conversation after this movie this coming Saturday night. Lauren, you are a huge star now in all of these great things that I'm a huge fan of, Yellow Jackets and 6 Feet Under. You've been nominated for Tonys and Grammys, but this is right on the cusp of a bunch of folks who become breakout stars, including Amy Adams, who wasn't really well known at the time. I guess Nicholas Brendon, who's Xander in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, another one of my favorite intellectual properties, is a big star at the time that this is happening. Talk about this era, the early 2000s or late 1990s. It comes out in 2000, and these stars on the cusp, including yourself, of breaking out.
Yeah, there are just so many talented people around. Amy is just such a beautiful performer. I mean, she really can do and did do in that film anything. She was to do this great dance number, and she's such a beautiful dancer and just all-around beautiful performer. And it makes perfect sense that she rocketed to stardom. We had this beautiful event at ISC a couple weeks ago, and that's when I mentioned to Charles about Triplex, what a community effort is to have a small movie theater stay open.
Yeah.
Every town has to have a movie theater, and there's a lot of people in our town trying to keep this movie theater open. And I'm so grateful that Charles was willing to come and do an event for the 25th anniversary, like we did in New York. We had this fabulous anniversary moment, and do a little rural version up here. It's a nonprofit, and my son works there now selling popcorn.
That is amazing. And the reason that superstar Lauren Ambrose knows so much about the Triplex Cinema in Great Barrington is because she is a 413 resident, and her husband, Sam Handel, who is also a filmmaker, is on the Triplex board because it's a nonprofit cinema. And Lauren Ambrose and Sam will be in discussion with Charles Busch this Saturday night at the Triplex at 7 after the screening of the cult classic film Psycho Beach Party. Now, Lauren, you mentioned that it is now in the Criterion Closet, which for film fans is the the apex of perhaps high-profile filmmaking or respected filmmaking.
Gold standard.
At what point, maybe, Charles or Lauren, did you realize that this film had a cult status?
Well, I really wasn't so aware of it, to be honest, because when the movie came out, like most movies that develop a cult, it kind of disappeared fairly quickly. I mean, it wasn't like it made a lot of money when it first came out. It was a little small film. And then I guess gradually over the past maybe 5 years or more, people who are now, like, say, in their 30s would come up to me at different places and say, "Oh, when I was growing up, I used to watch it on Showtime, Psycho Beach Party, and I love it so much." and other people, sort of veterans from the film, I think Thomas Gibson, who I worked with about a year ago, said the same thing. And he, his big credit is, he was, CSI and Dharma and Greg, and yet he said that so often people really are sentimental about Psycho Beach Party. So I think that's what happened, is it started showing on cable TV, and teenagers watching it started seeing it. And that's how a cult begins for a film. And what a lovely surprise that the Criterion Collection took it on, and now I'm hoping, it's looking like the film I made after that, called Die Mommy Die, that's going to be part of the collection as well.
Excellent.
I actually wanted to ask you about that too, because that's the first film I know about you in. But do you feel like your work, after going through, like, writing the play for Psycho Beach Party and then writing the screenplay for it, that you had an easier transition with Die Mommy Die onto the screen?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I learned so much from Bob King, and who was younger than me, but became kind of a teacher. Absolutely, and it was kind of, Die Mommy Die in a way was easier, just because of the nature of the movie, that it wasn't so spread out, like a beach party movie, and with musical numbers and so many locations. Die Mommy Die, so much of it is set in this Hollywood Beverly Hills mansion. Yeah, I learned a lot, and it was also good for me as an actor, that because I'd had relatively little film experience.
I know that we're trying not to give spoilers, but the movie is 25 years old, and there's a good chance that people have seen it and are seeing it for nostalgia's sake. So, Lauren, you went to Tanglewood Music Institute for a couple of summers, and there's a scene in Psycho Beach Party where you sing opera.
Yes.
Was that improvised, or did you bring that in on purpose, or did they know that you had been a trained opera singer and ask you to make that one of the personalities that came out in that big personality soup?
Yeah, there's this funny scene where I'm like channeling all these different stations, or sort of radio stations. So she's in a fugue state, channeling all these various people, and one of them is an opera broadcast. I thought of it as live from the Met, but I actually don't know how that came about. Charles, do you remember? Was that in the script, or did I just make it up, or say I could do this?
I think that's probably what happened. That you just said, oh, by the way, I can sing.
I'm going to give you full credit.
Was it your time at Tanglewood, Lauren, that made you connected to Western Massachusetts, that brought you here to raise your family, etc.?
Yes, indeed. That's how I came to know this area, and I fell in love with it.
Excellent. Well,
Lauren, where are you from originally? Where'd you grow
up? I'm from New Haven, Connecticut.
Best pizza in America.
Period.
Pizza, Yale.
Yep.
Yeah.
Best pizza.
I think you may think you have good pizza in New York, Charles, and you do, but it's not like New Haven.
It's a whole other thing. You don't realize growing
up
in New Haven about the pizza until you leave something and you go, what is this?
New Haven's the pizza capital of the world, really?
Yeah,
well, I mean, I think Italy is probably the pizza
outside of Naples.
Yeah, but certainly of America.
But all these Neapolitan immigrants came from Naples and made pizzerias and developed this sort of Neapolitan-inspired New Haven-style pizza.
You yourself of Italian descent, right, Lauren?
Yeah. And sell the pizza and the opera and stuff. Yeah.
So do you fall on the line between Frank Pepe's and Sally's, which are right next to each other in New Haven?
I have a secret one that I will not reveal.
Okay,
there we go.
Excellent.
No, I'll tell everybody. It's as modern. Modern is.
Oh, you're a Moderna.
Yeah, we have a friend who's
pizza place growing up.
Yeah.
That is a very acceptable answer.
Yes.
I love that answer.
It's one of the 4 acceptable answers.
Yes. We're not even, we've been talking about Connecticut way too much. We're the Fabulous 413. We got to keep it Western Mass centric. And yes, in Western Mass, there's going to be a really fun event this Saturday, September 13th at the Triplex in Great Barrington, where there's also pretty awesome pizza in the Neapolitan style. If you haven't been, Luva. Yeah, pretty new pizza place. Anyway, this movie, Psycho Beach Party, is fantastic. It's a huge fun ride. If you haven't seen it already, it's a delight. It's got stars on the cusp of breaking from 25 years ago when this movie came out in 2000. And Khalees has one more question.
I do. I'm so sorry. Charles, I have a question about this movie is super queer-coded, and you're in drag.
You think?
I think coded is maybe excessive.
No, like
Perceptive.
Well, for me, up until the end, at least in the first viewing, definitely thought Chicklet was queer.
Yeah.
But you play a woman in this film. What was the reception like then and now? Has it changed, the reception of you being in drag on screen?
You know, it's so funny is I don't think there was ever a question because, well, you know, my career in the theater has really always been playing female characters. Oddly enough, I never really thought of it that I was even in drag. That's why I've never thought of myself as a drag queen, or I don't know. I just always had I'm a rather androgynous fellow. I'm not the butchest thing on the block, and I just always loved actresses. I loved them so much that I just had a knack for kind of embodying them. Going to Northwestern, where I was a theater major, that I was never cast to play. There really weren't roles that were suited for me, male roles, but I was always writing. And then I thought I'll just create roles for myself, and they tended to be, always the leading lady. For the most part, I was accepted. I'm not sure really that the critics even at the time made terribly much attention to that. I think in some cases maybe I think that even if Die Mommy Die, there might have been I think Roger Ebert when he reviewed Die Mommy Die and took issue that I think he felt that I needed to be more exaggerated, like divine, or like more grotesque, and that here I was being presented very realistically, looking rather glamorous as much as they could make me, and even in Psycho Beach Party, there are no jokes ever about that it's a man playing the part. It's just I'm just playing the role. And
you normalized it.
That was also the feeling on set too. I remember Charles would come to set, and it was an event. It was like this grand Hollywood dame was arriving, and there was in fact, when they introduced you and said drag queen, I thought, oh, that doesn't quite scan for me because it's something else. It's like a great,
it's a
great actress.
Throughout my career, it's been so tricky because you have to, in a certain sense, always it's necessary to be defined. That's just the way it is, and so sometimes I'd said, well, I'll call myself a drag legend.
I was just going to say, to our credit, it does say on your own website that you are a drag legend. So
I felt like you have to sort of do it. I just really wanted to make sure that they understood that I was an actor, writer, and that this wasn't sort of a lifestyle thing. But I was being a bit disingenuous, to be quite honest. I think that having a career where, for the most part, for the past 40 years or more, has been filtered through a female persona, that it comes from a very personal place. It's just part of my nature and part of my creativity. It comes from a very rather profound place that I don't even really understand it. In some ways, don't really need to understand it. Does that make any sense at all?
It makes total sense to me as somebody who is very heterosexual in my preferences, but often is doing many things in all manner of gowns. Awesome. I love dressing in what is called drag, but I am not a drag queen. It exists in a place in my life that I can't explain either. So you have explained it in a way that's very helpful for me.
And frankly, what more heightened would Roger Ebert need than a suntan oil wrestling party on the beach? I mean, that's pretty blatant.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff in there. Roger Ebert,
Well, because in those movies, I think one of the things that we were having fun with, and it's in the play as well, is kind of the undercurrent of homosexuality with these cute beach boys. All these guys are hanging out at the beach, and maybe they're trying a little too hard to carry on about all the babes.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something else going on underneath. I don't know.
Well, the movie is a delight. It is now a classic, and it is being celebrated with the 25th anniversary. The movie is Psycho Beach Party. It was written by and stars Charles Busch and Lauren Ambrose. They will be in conversation with Sam Handel, writer and Triplex board member at the Triplex Cinema in Great Barrington this Saturday night. If you have or haven't seen this movie, this is a wonderful opportunity.
Yes.
It's such a delight. And thank you both so much for talking with us today.
Well, thanks for having us. This is a lot of fun. And I'm just so glad, Lauren, that, because we never really haven't seen each other in 20 years or so, and now we're thrust back together, and I'm so enjoying that, Lauren.
I know. We had this sweet event in celebration of the film and Charles's work because of 25th anniversary at IFC, and now we get to do it here in the Berkshires, and I'm just so pleased that you agreed to do it, Charles. I know the Triplex is. I'm just so grateful. And thanks, guys, for shining light on this.
Oh, our pleasure.
And this 25th anniversary of this film. Thank you.
And getting into the Criterion Collection.
Yeah.
And again, I can't recommend Die Mommy Die enough. If you're into, campy queer movies, go watch that. And now to explore the places where humanity, memory, and technology overlap in the brand new opera The Onion, which opens at Amherst College this weekend.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar in Hatfield, offering personalized solar energy solutions and ongoing customer care, proudly serving communities throughout the Pioneer Valley. Northeast-solar.com.
So this, The Onion, has nothing to do with the satirical newspaper, which I am a huge, huge fan of.
No.
Unfortunately not. Yeah, but it didn't keep us from wanting to come to Amherst College campus at the Holden Theater, where this weekend, is it the premiere of this production of The Onion?
It is. It's been 2 years in rehearsal, and we've done workshops, but never a full performance with orchestra and full staging, so it's very exciting.
And you'll get it first before it moves to the Huntington Theater in Boston.
My name's Eric Sawyer. I wrote the music and co-wrote the libretto with Ron.
Ron Bashford, and I co-wrote the libretto with Eric, and I'm the director of the production.
The set is incredible. It looks like something from A Beautiful Mind, the movie, where there's all of these glass frames set up with mathematical formulas and then remnants of things past. There's computer monitors and what look like speakers and also plants growing all over them and typewriters.
Well, it's a show about memory and technology and how that intersects with being a human being. It also takes place on an island, which is inspired partly by Shakespeare's The Tempest.
I thought you were going to say Lost for 1 second. But
No.
Much better.
The Tempest ends better than Lost does.
But we wanted to create it because they kind of go back to their previous memories with the help of the Onion, which is the AI. We wanted to create a space that could transform itself, that was practical but somewhat non-literal.
I feel like we put this cart a little bit before the horse. So if we could get just a sort of brief synopsis, a little carrot for people to be interested in this show and what it's about. What is this show about?
I think the main character should start answering that question.
What's your name and what's your character?
Tell us what you're doing.
Yeah.
I'm Dana Varga. I'm playing Magistra, the neuroscientist who created the machine, the Onion. And this opera, I like to call it a sci-fi opera, and it's about a machine that allows you to access all of your past memories as if you're reliving it. The opera itself explores a number of themes. Number one, AI, and it perhaps getting a mind of its own or becoming too smart, which is very relevant, obviously, as well as some deep family conflict, theft of work in academia and sexism in academia, and also one of the characters has a gender identity journey.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's meet some of the other actors and singers who are here with us and tell us what your name is and who you play in The Onion.
Hi, my name is Ifeanyi Pullman. I play The Onion.
Aha. So you're like Siri or Alexa.
Exactly.
Do we see you on stage?
Yeah, you actually do see me at some point. I become kind of like human, so you get to see me. Yeah.
Good. If you become human, we can maybe defeat you. Not that I want to defeat you, but I mean, like, whatever.
Hi, I'm Emma West. I play Miranda, Magistra's daughter.
And I'm David Thomas Mather. I play Octavian, who is Magistra's lab assistant, who has a very interpersonal relationship with the Onion, which will be discovered if you come see the show.
Mm-hmm. And there's one more character, that's David Small. He plays the role of Cal, who first appears a couple of times in the memories of Magistra and Miranda. This is part of the premise, so I'm not giving too much away. He stole her research. Mm-hmm. He was her mentor and her lover and the father of her daughter, and stole her research.
Tale as old as time.
Yeah.
Why opera as the setting for this story as opposed to standard theater?
I would say that this is a mix. A lot of these folks have performed in musical theater and are very familiar with that, and they can bring the strengths of American musical theater, which include naturalness and intelligibility of the words. And of course, this is a modern story in English. It's not in Italian, and about mythology. Why opera? Opera's very good at some things, and one of them is big emotions. And we're talking about memory, and Dana described some of the intense things that are hidden in people's pasts, and they go back to their younger selves. And so the emotions run high, and the kinds of voices that these folks have can hold that expression, and they do not use microphones. They project it all, from their physical being. And I think that, for this story, it tells the story well.
Also, opera is a medium that you have worked in previously. You did The Scarlet Professor, which was an opera about Smith College ostracizing a gay professor from that college that now has so strongly associated itself with LGBTQ rights.
That's right. I've done various historical operas. That was 1960, so it was pretty close to the present. But before that, I did one about Lincoln's assassination at the theater, and about another Northampton story, The Garden of Martyrs, about Daly and Halligan.
The Irish people that were murdered, essentially executed for a murder that they likely didn't commit.
Yeah, so I have worked my way to the present. And in the meantime, and Ron worked on this piece also, we did a musical called My Evil Twin. So straddling this line using elements of opera and musical theater is always something I've been interested in.
Where did the genesis for this idea come from? Because you mentioned you've done historical musicals before, so you can pull from this is a great story from history. Was there an impetus for this in your own personal lives in writing it, Eric?
We started it in COVID, being home and not being able to go out and do much. Memory started to seem very important.
I like the idea of the story. I have a music background and a background directing some opera and musical theater, as well as directing straight plays. And I love working on shows that have theatrical magic. As I said, this has some relationship to Shakespeare's The Tempest, which is a play about a crime and magic and a family and a single parent. And in this case, the magic is technology. Mm-hmm. So we're using technology to tell the story of technology, because the setting, as you mentioned, feels like a technical space.
Yeah, and you have these what look like fluorescent tubes, but actually LED tubes, and they're lying all over the place, and also can change color with the moods. And the glasses people put on to talk to the Onion also look really cool, like they're out of Tron, which actually was 40 years ago, but it's still about the future.
I mean, actually, this set looks a lot like the end set piece for Logan's Run.
Oh, yeah.
Where they make it out and they meet the one person, the old person that they've never seen before. They've never seen an old person, and you see like all of everything in disarray and like libraries and stuff that they've never encountered before.
That's lit up when she said Logan's Run.
Wow, because it's Peter Ustinov with a whole bunch of cats at the end, and I love the end of that movie.
AI is something that we're all really dealing with here, and this is something that is being dealt with in theater in sort of a sci-fi way. But you playing the Onion, many of us have been talking to some form of artificial intelligence even today. I push a button in my car, I speak into the nothing, it calls Khalees. Has this production and being a part of it changed all of your perceptions of AI, or anybody have a different perception of it than they went into this production with?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting to explore, and this show definitely does so, the potential ramifications of utilizing AI, giving up your personal data, giving up parts of yourself that could then potentially be exploited. So that's a real theme that I think as artists as well, especially given how much, copyright infringement and things of that nature are so prevalent today in our media, something I've been definitely thinking about, but also the need for AI to have creative uses as well. How much do we put creativity in the hands of something like an AI versus in the hands of individual artists? Something I think about every day, since my job could very well be on the line.
Yeah.
Like, it also brings up the question of like AI and memory, because this is a play that deals with both, and the fact that we've started using it in place of memory in a lot of locations. So has this changed your views towards the things that you try to remember for yourself as opposed to putting in those places?
Thinking about it as a therapeutic tool is sort of fascinating.
Meaning
and
theater or AI?
Well, definitely theater. To me, that's old news. But AI as a therapeutic tool is interesting to think about. But also, I think in a different way, sort of this technology could be really dangerous. So much of the conversation around AI is, what does it mean for the future? But I think this opera is asking, what does it mean about the past and for the past, which is pretty interesting to me and something I hadn't thought about before.
And this opera is called The Onion, and it will be at the Holden Theater at Amherst College campus this Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
So you mentioned that this was workshopped for about 2 years. Were the actors that are here a part of that workshopping process, and how did you see the changes in this play?
I've been involved since the beginning, and I think it's been an interesting journey simply because every time we get together, we find new things, we find new aspects to the character, we have a better overall understanding about the journey and also our part in it. As I've gone through this process, I have come to the conclusion that we are right on the edge of all of this, in real life. It's fascinating to kind of watch its progression.
Yeah, so I think for me, it's the growth musically, the growth that we have now, and how, in sync everybody is has been amazing. Especially at the end of today's rehearsal, I'm like, yeah, we're ready for this show.
And the orchestra's incredible.
Yeah.
Where does the orchestra go? This stage is very small.
You can see a few chairs
Oh,
back
cool.
And one of the wonderful things about this set is you look back there and you can imagine that's just some more technology in the back. It just harmonizes. The orchestra's back there because there's nowhere else to put them. And in fact, we're using technology for them to communicate with the singers because, of course, the singers can see the conductor through these monitors here, but the monitors just look like more of Magistra's workplace.
Yeah, it fits so perfectly.
If this is giving too much about the show away, feel free not to answer it, but why call the AI the onion?
Well, it is a metaphor that's been used before, since there are shells to an onion and there are shells to people, certainly in the popular imagination. I don't know whether it really holds up under scrutiny from modern neuroscience, but it's still a powerful metaphor, and also you can go to an inner layer peeling away the outer layers, but the outer layers also can remain. In several parts of the opera, there's a kind of dual consciousness where there's great immersion in the past, but also a little bit of consciousness that there's a present to get back to.
You have performed this in workshop before, even here in Amherst, and I know some of you have associations with Amherst, UMass Amherst, or taught there. Both Eric and Ron teach at Amherst College. But you did this production for a group of, was it neuroscientists?
Yes.
Talk about that experience and what feedback you got.
That was at UMass. And we had an invitation from UMass neuroscientist Paul Katz to perform half of it at the Interdisciplinary Neuroscience Conference. And we had respondents. 2 Harvard neuroscientists came on stage after and had a discussion with all of us. The most exciting thing that they said, or maybe scariest, was when asked, could this machine really exist? They said, oh, yes, and suggested that it might not even be very far in the future.
Fun.
Every time these things happen, I'm like, sci-fi has been telling us about this for years.
Yeah.
And maybe use a little more caution.
I think what we're learning about the field of AI is that prompting and whoever is in charge and is working with that AI needs to either have a very clear conscience themselves, good morality, any number of those things in order to properly utilize that technology without any kind of confirmation bias and all these other things. And so certainly this show explores that fact as part of the reason this onion machine was created, was to kind of dig back and find proof. One person's idea of proof versus another, it's all right at the surface today, and it's the things that you start to think about, and then you start to tip over and go, that's a little too much for me.
Memory as proof is another concept that, you think of Rashomon, the Kurosawa movie. That is all about me trying to recount a memory of what was witnessed in this murder, and how real are the memories in our brains that AI could plumb versus what actually happened in real life bring up other fascinating questions, I think, too.
I feel like American opera and opera in English in general is kind of disparaged against. Has working on this show for so long kind of changed your opinion about that, or at least given you new insight to opera done in English?
I think you're asking a group of people who don't disparage opera, right? So, right?
If you call it a musical or a rock opera, somehow people love it. If you just say it's opera, people are like, oh, I don't know if it's for me.
And especially if it's in English.
Then the people who love opera think, oh, if it's not in Italian, it's not for me.
I think some of these things are taught with a bias, or we have a kind of anti-highbrow bias in America. But the history of opera is entertainment for the masses, just like our popular forms today. You know, my personal experience with it is when you see it live, it's so vivid and stimulating and exciting, and just like going to a popular play or musical, people should not be afraid because it's called opera.
Hey, Grok, do people like opera?
Don't ask your phone things.
We could try to market this as something else if we were really afraid of the popular conception of opera, which definitely is outside of a lot of people's experience. But people who are curious might just show up and hear one for the first time, and we want that experience to be, oh, opera's actually worth paying attention to, and maybe even really just like watching a play or something that seems very natural, especially if it's modern and in English.
Is that me?
That's you.
Why would it just randomly start playing Bowie?
You asked it questions.
I asked it to play opera, and it played Ziggy Stardust.
Which is kind of a space opera.
I don't have a problem with that.
It's learning from you.
It's learning from me. It knows me. It knows what I want to listen to. Oh, my.
The Onion opens tomorrow night, September 11th, and runs through September 13th. OnionOpera.com.
On the next Fabulous 413, Northampton mayoral candidate number 3, Dan Brindell, will join us.
And we'll hear about a new novel, The Library of Unusual Treasures, with local author Gene Birdsell.
Plus, our weekly chat with U.S. Congressman Jim McGovern. If you've got a question for the congressman, send it our way, thefab413@nepm.org.
I'm Khalees Smith.
I'm Monty Belmonte.
We will talk to you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.